Hi, it's Alaska Granny. If you've been to the grocery store lately, you know that foods are definitely in short supply in many places. If you have all of the things that you want at your local grocery store, you need to be thankful because many people are not experiencing that. There are so many complex reasons why there are supply chain disruptions, shortages in the stores, and this has been going on for nearly 2 years. I think it's gotten dramatically worse. And so one of the things that I want to do is add to my long-term bulk food storage. It's still a great time to add to the longest-term foods. If you don't have any food set aside for emergencies, you need to make that a priority and stock up on some easy-to-open canned foods that you can just tear open and eat that don't require any cooking. Because in a real emergency, you may not have power or water. So make sure you have some easy to eat, ready to go foods. Then you want some simple to prepare foods that you just maybe do a little cooking. Packaged meals, things you can stir together, add some water, heat them up. Those kind of foods that are very simple to make meals. You should also add some of the bulk, longest lasting dry foods into your prepper pantry. These are foods that are versatile, they're inexpensive, and they last nearly forever. There's so many ways that you can prepare them to make meals to feed your family. These are foods that can last for 30 years as long as you store them in an airtight container in a cool, dark, dry place. What are some of the bulk foods that every pantry should have? I like to start with oatmeal. You can even pick it up at the Dollar Tree. Oatmeal is versatile. You can cook it and serve it for breakfast. You can add it into baked goods, and you can even turn it into bread. Oatmeal is very versatile and long-lasting, plus it's inexpensive. Get some rice. Rice is one of the most commonly eaten foods all over the world because it's easy to prepare, it's long-lasting, it's reasonably nutritious, and you can make all kinds of foods with it. Choose white rice over brown rice because brown rice has lots of natural oils and it's not going to last anywhere near as long as white rice. Yes, you can have brown rice. Just make sure you rotate your brown rice within about 2 years, whereas your white rice can last for 30 years. To go along with your rice, get a variety of dried beans. These are pinto beans and black beans. There's all kinds of beans. Go to the store, see which ones you can find. It's surprising. They all used to be about the same price, but they're not anymore. It's almost impossible to find them for about $1 a pound, and I was surprised that some varieties of beans are costing far more than others, ones that used to be similar price. So look at the prices when you're stocking up. If money is especially tight, and maybe you can save a few pennies buying a less expensive bean. But make sure that you're still buying foods that you're willing to eat. Don't stock up on a kind of bean you don't like just because it's a few cents less. When I put the beans away in a container, I tape the directions onto the container so that I remember how to cook them. One of the steps you need to realize that kidney beans need is they have to be soaked and drained and then cooked for the longest amount of time. There's a toxin in kidney beans that exists naturally, and you need to make sure that you cook that away. So read your bean directions carefully, especially if you're adding dry kidney beans into your prepper pantry. Quinoa is a great bulk food that every prepper pantry should have. You'll often hear quinoa referred to as a grain, but it's actually a seed, and they're very tiny and they're packed with protein. Quinoa is particularly nice to include in your bulk food prepper pantry because it's loaded with protein. It also, for the weight of it, it doesn't take up very much space. When you add quinoa with water and you cook it, you're going to find that it swells up to 3 times the original size, whereas rice will go to 2 times the original size. And leftover quinoa is great too. You can just stir in some black beans, stir in some salsa, add some kind of toppings, anything you want. Make some little mixed up yummy bowls. There are all kinds of ways to serve quinoa. I even picked this little package up at the Dollar Tree. Pasta is fantastic to store in your long-term bulk food. Pasta, if it's sealed in an airtight container, can last indefinitely. I have never had pasta that spoiled when I put it into my long-term food storage. I've always stored it airtight, kept it in a cool, dark, dry place, and it has lasted. Every single time I've gotten some out of my food storage, it's been perfectly fine. The shape of the pasta certainly makes a difference with the amount of space that it takes up. Things like macaronis and pennes, because of their shape, they have lots of airspace in between. The long, thin noodles like spaghetti, fettuccine, linguine, they can just lay stacked up side by side and they take up less space. I have 20 ounces of spaghetti in this jar, and if I had a box of 20 ounces of other shapes of noodles, sometimes I find they need 3 jars. Other bulk foods that I have in my prepper pantry are lentils. Lentils are very versatile, they're packed with protein, and they cook in far less time than beans. Same with split peas. It's another kind of a legume that is versatile, flavorful, and nutritious. So look for lentils and split peas and add those also into your bulk long-term food storage. Popcorn is also a food that can last forever, but you want to make sure that you keep it airtight. There's a little moisture kernel in the middle of a popcorn kernel, and you want to keep that from drying out. It's the little moisture that when you try to pop the popcorn, it heats it up and it makes steam, and poof, that's what makes your popcorn pop. So you don't want that to dry out. If it should dry out and it won't pop anymore, you can actually grind it up and make it into cornmeal and make other things that you would use cornmeal instead of popcorn. Next, stockpile some of your baking supplies, the basics like flour, sugar, baking soda, baking powder, and yeast if you plan to make yeast bread. Some of those foods are not going to last as long as these other ones. If you wanted to have the longest lasting ability to make bread, you would want to store some wheat berries, the actual wheat kernels. The problem storing wheat berries is if you want to make bread out of it, you have to turn it into flour, and the wheat kernels are extremely hard. So you have to buy a special grinder to grind up the wheat and turn it into flour. If you had a large family, that might make a lot of sense. I don't plan to ever do that, so that's not something that I store. So it's still about choices. Store the foods that you want, that you're willing to eat. And then however much food you decide to store, you need to know that you need water. Every single day of your life, you need water for drinking, you need water for cooking, you need water for washing and sanitation. The minimum water you should be stockpiling is 1 gallon per person per day for as many days as possible. You can pick it up 1 gallon at a time at the store. You can buy containers and fill them yourselves. You can recycle containers like I did here, clean them well, and fill them up with water, because you're going to need water for purposes besides just drinking. You need it for sanitation and cleaning as well. So food storage doesn't have to be expensive. It doesn't have to be complicated. You can get some clean containers that have stored food products. You can clean them well, dry them thoroughly, and use them to fill up with food or store some extra water. The future is beginning to look a little scary and grim, so you might want to consider adding extra to your stockpile while you can still get things, because we just don't know. There are a lot of signs out there besides just on the empty shelves in the grocery store that say we could be in for some very dangerous times ahead. So prepare while you can so you can make the best of whatever the future holds. That's the best we can do. Prepare the best you can so that you'll have a favorable outcome for as many days as possible. If you enjoyed my video, I hope you'll share it with someone else you think might like it. Please subscribe to the Alaska Granny channel.